Hello. So it's Shirley Kutkowski at Primal Air, and I'm going to give you a little sample today of what we're doing here at Primal Air along with Shalom Family Chiropractic with respect to diet and diet education or health education. What we have both independently discovered is that we are both repeating ourselves with respect to dietary advice to a lot of our patients, particularly our pain patients. So we really wanted to make things go a little bit easier. And one of the ways we decided to do that was to host an online course about some of the truths that we need people to understand so that they can live a healthier life and to improve our treatment plans. It's very disheartening to to tell people that we can help them get out of pain, and then we accidentally find out that they're eating 3 pounds of spinach a day in a smoothie. And so it really does alter our treatment plan. So we came up with a little treatment or a little course called Primal Family Table that kind of mushes our two business names together. And today is my day to give a little sample of the Primal Family Table and feeding kids 0 to 5. Our goals for a 5-year-old are that they will, all the kids, is to have enough spaces between their teeth that you could put a nickel in by the time they're 5, and to be completely neurologically regulated so that they're not, just, I don't know, I hate to say naughty, but you know what I mean, where they just don't know that they're not doing the right thing, or they're, doing naughty things like spilling out a box of toys just after you picked it up and you have company coming any second, and they just look at you and they're just like, that kind of thing. That all comes with dysregulated neurological system or poor sleep or a combination of both. This is why we work together to accommodate those 2, 3, 4 things that really conspire to decrease everyone's enjoyment of their life on the planet. So here we go. I'm going to screen share here. I'm going to turn on the share sound because I do have some videos here. And we're going to talk about feeding babies 0 to 5. One of the things that we have to remember is how we are on the planet as compared to other mammals, and the dyad between the mother and the infant as compared to a mother animal and another mother animal and its offspring. So this little video.
Hey smart people, Joe here. The first thing a baby giraffe experiences after being born is a 2-meter fall straight down to the ground. But within an hour, it's standing, walking, and nursing on its own. And a blue whale calf, after nearly a year growing inside mom, can swim to the surface moments after being born. Human babies, on the other hand, we're born unable to move or eat on our own. We can't communicate or fully sense our world, and we leak everywhere. If humans are so smart, why are our babies so unsmart? Human babies begin life so undeveloped that many people refer to a baby's first few months of life as the 4th trimester. Compared to other animals, we lie on the altricial end of the spectrum. Compare that with, say, a baby cow, a precocial animal whose brain and body is developed enough that they can stand and run just moments after being born. Tiny humans require a ton of parental care before we're ready to be on our own. Our parents not only grow us for 9 months or so, they carry us, they feed us, they keep us from dying, and they teach us how to provide for ourselves for 15, 18 years. Heck, these days, even over 30 isn't unheard of. It's actually totally normal. Ma, I'm shooting a video down here. Start over and edit this. That's because, well, our brains come out half-cooked at best. When we are born, our brain is around 30% the size of our adult brain. That's the smallest of all of our primate relatives. So why does our smart species have such small-brained babies? Well, for a long time, scientists' best answer to that question was the obstetric dilemma. Basically, our brains come out as big as they physically can be. The obstetric dilemma goes like this. If our brains were any bigger at birth, they wouldn't fit out the birth canal. And if female pelvises were any wider, they would make walking and running less efficient, which might not affect your life that way.
So that's what's been going on.
Hey, smart people, Joe here.
Reasonable, or it's impossible for us to have infants that are more on the precocial side of that continuum. We really do need to understand that our infants are still attached to the mother for approximately 3 to 6 months after birth. There is a connection between the two that cannot be denied. And I think that we try really hard to ignore that. When I was in college, actually, I already had 4 children. I went and got myself pregnant again. We had our 5th child, and I was back at school after 2 weeks. I don't know, it was a 40-minute trip one way, and I took classes, and my husband did the best he could with the feeding and stuff. And there was a lot riding on me going to college at that age. So we really did convince ourselves that the baby really didn't need me. And now I know that that is absolutely not true. And what I tell new mothers is that they should keep the small house, buy a really good used car, and stay home longer. The babies really, really, really do need us. Here's another little example.
This is what a baby's head looks like at birth, and that
for humans.
Head has to fit through the pelvis. So the baby goes in with its head facing sideways, and then when it's halfway through the pelvis, it turns through 90 degrees to point backwards. It all boils down to a difficult passage through the pelvis because of this trade-off between adaptation of the pelvis for upright walking and this big brain. So all of that points to the need for some kind of assistance. We don't know exactly when, but we can trace this process through the fossil record fairly effectively, and my guess is that we started needing midwives about 1 million years ago. There's some kind of help.
You mentioned earlier that we have a great record for knowing how humans have evolved over time and how the evolution of birthing practices have evolved over time. So can you talk a little bit about some of the examples that we have in the fossil record?
So this is one side of the pelvis of Lucy, the famous Australopithecus from Ethiopia. So if you mirror image the pelvis and put it together, you can work out how big the birth canal was.
Right.
And we can calculate how big the baby's head was likely to be. But then when you get up to Homo erectus, by 1.5 million years ago with early Homo, we almost certainly had the beginnings of a difficult birth. They would have had slower births, and maybe they already needed midwives at that stage. It's quite possible.
So 1 million years ago. So what I want to use this piece of information for is how long it takes for evolution to make changes. So it takes a really long time. Our faces have changed quite dramatically in the last 200 years, so much so that it would have normally taken 10,000 years of evolutionary pressures to make these changes. So we have to wonder what exactly
This
is
is
happening.
what a baby.
Some of the benefits of being a baby and being so dependent is that they are adorable. This is a little family that comes to our office. Dr. Samuel does the chiropractic care for the whole family. And I have been treating, I and Diane, our therapist, our therapist who specializes in elementary school children, has been seeing this girl here who's getting her pictures taken since she was 5 years old. And we've been trying to get her mouth to be the right size. These are her siblings out here watching me take the pictures. And this is the newest baby who's also getting chiropractic care. The mother is also a doula. So, you know, it's a big family affair, and everybody's adorable and everybody's cute. And all of that has a biological reason. There, since the last, I don't know, 20 or 30 years, there's this idea of a baby schema and how babies are cute and they get less and less cute as they age. We're going to come back to this picture in another little bit here, but this is why we have been, why we've even survived as a species. If you can imagine being tied to an infant, and I know everybody in the audience who's a mother knows this feeling well, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. And if you think about the time in the past, you know, the time, or before clothes, I like to say, it was pretty hard to leave your infant. And so, in order for the infant to survive, it has to have these bonding chemicals and these cuteness factors that force the mother to prioritize the infant over everything else. The fathers have a different kind of a relationship where their focus is not on the survival of the infant, it's on the survival of the dyad. That person, the father, is hardwired to be protective of the dyad. And in today's society, it's been harder and harder for that to happen. There are a lot of influences that are getting in between the father and the mother-child dyad. There's not enough time to talk about it here. I'm here to talk about a different kind of a topic. I just need to get through this little piece here. So we've got not only this cuteness factor, we have this enormous, I don't know, roller coaster of hormones that are happening also. So it makes it so that the infant survives the birthing and the nurturing that's required at the beginning of its life, of its early life. We have all of these hormones. And then I went to look back and I'm like, which ones are fat-based? Because we know that a lot of hormones are fat-based. So the two main hormones, the estrogen and the testosterone, are fat-based. The others are not fat-based. If you don't have enough fat in your diet, however, it makes it harder and harder to manufacture all of the hormones. In men, the testosterone level is extremely impacted. I couldn't find a lot on the estrogen impaction, because when you formulate a question for Google, let's say, it just naturally assumes that you're talking about menopause. as opposed to testosterone, which should be about the same across the lifespan. We have a lot of evidence to show that today's men have much less testosterone than they did in the 70s. Let's just go back 2-3 generations. So this is a problem. This is part of the fat story that's missing in the discussions. So one of the other things, and I hope you can hear this cracking up baby in the background. It's more than just the hormones and the way the baby looks. Laughing babies makes everything stop. It's so distracting. I remember listening to a radio show that I used to enjoy a lot called What Do You Know? And it's a call-in show on Saturdays while you're doing your housework. And the caller was a father in a car, and he had twins in the back that were cracking each other up. They couldn't have been more than, 12, 13 months old. And the whole audience was cracking up, and they couldn't even talk anymore. It was just so hilarious. So these babies have ways of getting attention for real. So there's that. Adorableness is an evolutionary mechanism that ensures the protection and care of these helpless infants. And that's not for nothing, that's a really important thing to get your head around. If parents didn't think their babies were so cute, they would have perished under what we know today as a tongue tie. They're so cute. Sorry, I got ahead of myself a little bit. This was a friend of mine on Facebook, and she was talking about the mess that these kids were making, and she couldn't figure out what was happening. And they were drawing chalk, just coloring the stoop with chalk. And then they were walking in and leaving chalk prints everywhere. And she ends up by saying, "This is not my first toddler booby trap I've been a victim of. Good thing they're so freaking cute." So we all know that the cuteness factor is there and that it's a thing. Now, in order to grow a cute face, the mouth has to be closed. It's so funny to me that this baby schema picture used this spectrum to be cuter as an infant and less cute as they become less infantile with this baby with the open mouth. This open mouth posture is robbing this baby of its cuteness because of the drawing down of the face. Okay, so inadvertently they are making our case for us. When you look for evidence that open mouth breathing or open mouth posture makes the face change, they usually use these 3 images of this kid who was gifted a gerbil or some kind of a rodent for a birthday, which he was allergic to, but the rodent lived in the room, in his bedroom. So he developed allergies to it, and he's had to mouth breathe, and then he became habitual, and his face really changed dramatically. But this one here is just out of the blue. Using that picture was very helpful for me. In order to get these cute babies to stay cute a long time, we need 3 occlusions. We need the lips to be together, and we need the tongue to be touching the palate, and eventually we're going to have dental occlusion where the baby's teeth come together. And then we get this really good looking, appropriately developed golden triad, or the golden thirds, or whatever that was called in art school, to develop the cranial facial respiratory complex. The best way to do that from the get-go is by breastfeeding as long as possible. Now, in today's society, they have developed an entire medical profession that takes the breast milk out of the breast, and then you're just supposed to feed them pumped milk, and you're supposed to go back to work so that you can, make your mortgage payments or whatever. We need two parents to work if we're going to have a house that's going to support all of us. And it's not just the milk, it's the breast in the baby's mouth that is communicating to develop different milk at different stages. If the baby is sick, the mother, that information will get transferred over through the nipple to the milk, and then it will change the quality of the milk to supply what it is the baby needs. You cannot do that with just pumped breast milk. You're not getting two-way communication. And we need the pressure of the nipple in the baby's mouth to press against the roof of the mouth to develop that palate so that the baby has enough room for the teeth to grow. We are very quick to switch to formula. You don't know what's going on in that formula. You can read all the labels, and then the 1 month or week or whatever, however often you have to buy it, they change the formula, and you were too tired to read it because now you trust the brand, and you just don't know what's in there. As we found out recently with these baby formulas, first of all, you couldn't buy it. And then we find that there are contaminants in there that we would never think that would be in there. You'd think that there would be safe. Why wouldn't it be safe? If it's baby formula, the baby's not going to spit it out. They will spit it out. And what do? We jam the nipple in there harder. We make sure the baby is eating. We do a lot with the formula, and we don't do very much with the nipples. The nipples are what form the face. And if you have a too small of a nipple, you're going to have problems in the facial development. So not only do we have problems with the milk or the food stuff, the something to eat, we also have this delivery method. So my brother is 9 years younger than me, so I was pretty aware of what was going on when he came home from the hospital. My mother did do breastfeeding for a time, and I remember that she was washing her nipples before she would feed the baby and after. And I often thought that was kind of weird, but what do I know? I was 9 years old. So now I just came across something. I think it was in the book called something about how the baby food is being made. It's kind of an older book. It's over 10 years old, but it was pretty interesting. And they talked about how that was like a thing to get women to stop nursing. So it would be so complicated and so dangerous that you have to wash your nipples between feedings, never thinking about, the tribes who are still living in the past. They don't wash their nipples. I mean, you saw those pictures a minute ago. But my brother had trouble getting milk out of the nipples after she switched over to bottle feeding, which did not take very long. And so because he was struggling so hard, she used a darning needle on the stove. She heated it up and she made the hole bigger in all those nipples. So he was gaining weight, but his face was not developing. He had the most crooked teeth out of all of us, I think. Then we start, making formula back in the olden days, and we use sweetened condensed milk because who's going to pass that up? The whole thing with formula is so interesting. In the old days, we used to give kids meat, and it doesn't say the offer expires May 15th, but it doesn't say the year of this ad, but it looks like the 50s or 60s. And the meat was given to infants. They need the meat. Today, we almost never get meat for our infants. And then I found this little episode here. This is the name of the whole video. I've just chopped out a couple of pieces by Dr. Gary Fettke. And what we need is to understand ketosis and the role of fat in the diet. So let's see.
What actually happens in pregnancy, and particularly women with morning sickness. So if I want to prove the safety of any intervention, ideally I want to do human trials and not animal trials. And ideally I want to do them on the most susceptible humans. And that's in fact the growing child. And the most important phase of growth is that first trimester of pregnancy. And therefore this may prove to be the perfect group to actually consider. Ideally I'd like to involve large numbers of shall we invite and call them participants into that trial. And I'd like to look at firm endpoints in a controlled time frame and to actually have good follow-up. I'd like to be able to reproduce those figures. I'd like to do this in multiple centres. I'd like it to be published in peer-reviewed literature and to be reproduced from country to country and also over time. So what do we know about the state of ketosis in pregnancy, newborns and infants? And it's actually a normal situation. It's critical in the growth patterns, and it's well and truly observed in women who are fasting. And when tested, it's present on the newborn child, the infant, and certainly even those first couple of years. The longer a child fasts, the more likely they enter into that state of ketosis, and that time frame is very short in the newborn and infant. All stages of growth utilise ketones, and obviously it's been a safe state for millennia. And clearly ketones are required for growth, particularly of the brain. So pregnancy gives us an interesting time frame. We know that it's a very critical development period for the child. Maternal nutrition is clearly important, and there are well-documented results in the literature that involve large numbers of patients. Complications are well documented, and there's good follow-up through to childhood. And those papers are in multiple forms and in peer-reviewed literature. So what endpoints should we be looking at? Well, I think we should be looking at birth defects. That's going to be obviously the most severe. We should look at miscarriage rates, whether or not a woman can get the pregnancy through to normal end of confinement. Birth weights can be well and truly documented, and so can pregnancy complications. And in fact, there's literature out there looking at the childhood development after pregnancy. Actually look at what happens with these same endpoints in diabetes. Well, as it turns out, birth defect rates are significantly greater in those women who have diabetes through their pregnancy, and particularly the first trimester. Those complications tend to be non-chromosomal. That means they're environmental. So that is actually related to the state of the pregnancy, not the genetic predispositions leading into it. Miscarriage rates are significantly greater in women with diabetes through their pregnancy. They often don't get through to full-term confinement. And birth weights can be either very high or much reduced. Pregnancy complications are clearly higher. And as it turns out, when you look at these children in development following on, they often have poorer cognition with higher rates of attention deficit disorder, and those results are coming out in the literature as we speak. Childhood health problems are greater, and with higher rates of ongoing obesity and diabetes. So the results are actually quite clear when you start looking at the literature. So does this provide proof that a state of ketosis is safe in pregnancy? Well, I think it does. We have human studies, and particularly we have them on children and development.
So what is ketosis? That is where your body is burning fat as energy instead of glucose. There is no macro requirement for carbohydrates in the human nutrition, including infants and children. Breast milk is very high in fat, and the babies are in ketosis during those early stages. And then we get into this 6-month period, and we can finally feed them cereal. And we're like, what? They're finally going to be able to eat. We're going to give them single grain rice cereal for baby. We're going to make it nice and soupy and give it to them on a spoon. This is the absolute wrong thing that we have done now for at least 3 generations. I did this for my kids. I was so excited to be able to feed them rice cereal. My son did this for his kids, and my other son probably did too. They're too far away. I wasn't that involved there at that stage. So I'm 100% sure, and I would put $5 on it, that this is the first massive trigger of insulin and the initiating event for all metabolic diseases. There is no reason why we should be feeding babies rice. It is improper for a human to eat rice. It is improper for an infant to be shoved, sweet fruits down their little gullets, and they are absolutely not used to having this amount of sugar. Their insulin is getting dumped into the system. Their poor pancreas, their little tiny pancreas that doesn't know what to do, is being triggered. And it is generationally problematic, as we see in the number of type 2 diabetes, which used to be called adult onset diabetes, in children, young children. Dr. Lustig calls sugar, or fructose in particular, the alcohol of the child. It's damaging to the liver, it's taxing the pancreas, and it is inappropriate, I think, for us to be feeding this much sugar to little tiny babies. They are in a very precarious situation. They need to be protected, and we can't keep having our heads turned by, all these different head turning things that keep us unfocused from the real job of the parent. Dr. Ken Berry, that's his name, was the first doctor that I found that talked about meat for babies. So I stuck this in here. I think that's his own child right now. And this is already a number of years old. He was just in the middle of a little kerfuffle because he was talking about feeding meat to babies. And everybody was like, oh my God, you can't do that. You can't, babies need to eat all this other stuff. And they really don't. If you really think about the time before time and people who lived in sequestered communities, they ate what they could get within walking, running distance. They didn't go to a grocery store and pick up food that was trucked in. They went out, they went and hunted to best they could. There are no salads, no salads depicted on the walls of the caves. It's all about hunting animals. And that was their primary food. Once we had fire, we had a lot of nutrients released from the meat. The plant material that they've been asking us to eat has been disrupting our essential fatty acid balance. We need to consume the essential fatty acids, omega-6 and omega-3. We have too much omega-3, and we have too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3s. And so if you're on a plant-based diet, you're going to have even more omega-6, and the balance is going to be off even further. So you can see the omega-3s come from fish and from a couple of nuts and seeds, but for the most part, you're going to get it from animal products. The FISH acronym for a proper human diet is called SMASH. The acronym is SMASH. It's not called SMASH. So SMASH stands for sardines, anchovies, SMA, sardines, salmon, mackerel, herring. So those are the fish. So the ideal thing to do is eat the smaller fish that come from the ocean. They are not exposed to the garbage in the ocean for as long, so it's not wrapped up into their tissue. Here are some books that I think would be really helpful for you to understand why fat is so important. You're going to hear that the brain needs glucose in order to function. The brain can function very well on ketones. Don't let that scare you. The fact is that the liver will dismantle the food that you eat, and it will make the exact amount of glucose that you need for your body, for your brain to work. Some of the fastest and longest distance runners are now on a primal diet or a meat-based diet. They are avoiding the carb loading beforehand. And a lot of the scientists who are writing books about their research and the research in brain health all are about 1 minute away from saying that these brain disorders are fat deficiencies. So Dr. Shalom and I like for our patients to start by increasing the amount of butter that they eat and reducing the amount of at least grains to start. Less and less and less grains, fewer and fewer and fewer grains. The grains that we have available here in the United States, the food that are made from grains, no matter how ancient the grains, they're all affected with glyphosate. They're GMO free or whatever. They have all these labels, but people get sick on American grains, and it also is an insulin trigger. We should not be eating a loaf of bread a day or a loaf of bread every few days. Okay. So Parkinson's disease, Bredesen with his Alzheimer's disease. Here's another Alzheimer's, Dr. Bredesen. Multiple sclerosis, all of these ADHD, all of these kind of things are even, oh my gosh, let's see, maybe it's on my next slide. Change your diet, change your mind is all about using high fat, animal focused diets to cure people of the most ridiculous levels of depression, bipolar disease, schizophrenia, by getting rid of the junk and then increasing the amount of fat. So it's not just the junk that has to go. People that are on vegan diets who aren't eating junk are also recovering from these incredible mental disturbances once their brain gets the right kind of food. This is the most important book I think I've ever read, Metabolical by Dr. Lustig. It really just goes all out and just goes right into the biochemistry of all of this stuff. And I've been telling the people who are in charge over at the dental hygiene schools to make this be the physiology book instead of whatever they're using right now. We need to know how metabolically the foods interact with us. And the best foods we have right now are fats. And I'm not talking about plant fats. I'm talking about saturated fats. We are in the third generation now of fat deficient diets, and it's showing up like crazy in our children. And that's bad. We can't afford to have kids that are so sick. We can't afford to have kids who are going to be, I don't know, is everything you say makes it sound terrible, but nobody would wish this on anyone. We need our kids to survive, to take care of us when I fell on the ice just a couple years ago on a hill, and all of a sudden, whoop, down I went, and I broke my leg. I was out of commission for a number of weeks. And, there are parents now who have kids with autism who will never have their kids be able to live free. And ADHD has gotten well into everything. Did you know that with ADHD in these elementary school kids, you cannot tell ADHD from sleep apnea? And no one is testing these kids for sleep apnea. If you have a kid that has ADHD diagnosis, or they want to put him on pills or whatever, this is the time to get him or her a sleep study. We need to have better diagnostics and treat what's actually the cause. The stimulants like Ritalin and the other ADHD medications are stimulants. So they're still not getting the sleep. They still are not growing in their sleep. They're still not healthy, and we can do more about it. Here's a couple of other books that would be of interest to most of us on this little webinar today. Carb Confusion, Why We Get Fat, The Case Against Sugar, The Ketogenic, what is ketogenic. I would also direct you to Metabolic Mind, which is a YouTube channel with a lot of doctors talking about how they're using diet to treat their patients, how the psychiatrists are treating their patients with diet. The Focus on Living today, with aspirations of getting to the primal roots of health for the entire family, from infants to toddlers, is what our overreaching. I mean, we want our patients to be healthy. We want our treatment plans to be health promoting, and we want our patients to be feeding themselves appropriately as well. I didn't say that this is an AI generated image, but these goats look more like chickens, or these chickens look like goats. No matter what you say, sometimes you really just don't get the right thing. The food is a huge factor. We have a lot of decisions to make. Okay. So this is also AI generated. And then I said to the AI generator, did you sneak in a salad onto the side under food? And it said, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. And I said, yes, you did. So it's now making me another image like this without the salad on the side here. And really, we're not talking about getting rid of salads. What we're really talking about is getting in touch with actual food from the latitude of your ancestors. So your super ancestors, not your grandparents, they were already exposed. Your grandparents were exposed to these fat-free, fat-phobic diets with the American pyramid, all of that kind of stuff. We have to repair based on that. Our girl babies are born with all the eggs they're ever going to have from the eggs that you have, mothers, that were affected by your mother's dietary choices. I'm going to let that sit. So that's why this is the third generation, even the fourth generation for some families, on these inappropriate diets. You do have a choice about your food. You also have choices about your light. and how much light you're exposed to. So you need to get outside. You need to get your kids outside. Light is a nutrient. If you are on a high plant diet or you've been eating a lot of plant oils like corn oil and canola oil and all the seed oils, your skin cannot make vitamin D even in the sun. So you really do need to supplement with a good vitamin D supplement. We have our choices. If you want to know what they are, we'll let you know when you come in for an assessment. Everybody up here in Wisconsin is short on vitamin D. If you get too much vitamin D, you'll know, and then you just lay off of it for a while. But we do have choices in how much light we're exposed to as well. We need to get out into the sun. We need actual sun, not just light. Sun exposure is critical to children, especially. In the 70s, we played outside. We were kicked out. We had nothing to do in the house. We were told we had to iron or vacuum, otherwise go outside. And so we were scared out. And today's kids, as parents and grandparents, we are so afraid of letting our children be children outdoors on their own with their own decisions to make, because we're afraid that they're going to get stolen or something horrible is going to happen to them because we keep watching 48 Hours or whatever those shows are. And we're not doing them a favor. They need to have sunlight. They need to move their body. Exercise is also a nutrient. So, oopie, there we go. That was an abrupt stop. Sorry about that. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing with our Primal Family Table course. The full course is 6 sessions long. We are trying an every other week kind of an approach. Maybe that's too long a time in between. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll make it be every other week or every 2 weeks. No, we're going to make it every week or every 2 weeks. But right now, this is what we're working very diligently on, and how to eat and where to eat. Dr. Samuel is from India. She's an immigrant, and she has other dietary things to talk about. The big surprise was on our first day of our live course when she was talking about washing rice and how many times it gets washed and what they do with the wash water and what they do with the cooking water. We're taught to 1 rice, 3 waters, and then there should be no water left. But the true rice eaters, not the Norwegian rice eaters or the Northern Germany rice eaters, know that you have to have water left over, and you do things with that water. So we have a wide variety of experiences, and we use some of the principles from the Weston A. Price Foundation. And I'm excited about offering this online full time. So have a great rest of your week. Happy Thanksgiving. It's very close to Thanksgiving right today. It's another week out. Woohoo! So have a great Thanksgiving, and I hope to hear from you soon. You can find us at primalair.com, shalomfamilychiropractic.com. Both of us have Facebook pages that you'll find more information on. Have a great rest of your week.